It's time for another Dice Tower review with the Chief, Bart Brunscheen.
Hey, it's the Chief from the Dice Tower. Today we're going to talk about Legacy Gears of Time. But as long as we're doing time travel, which I love, I've got to bring in my old Millennium Falcon here. I'm very late to the party with Fantasy Flight's X-Wing miniatures game. And I always want to call it X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. But I love it, and as long as we're going back in time, we could go back a long, long time ago. So, sorry, I love the Falcon. But we're here for Legacy and its expansion, which I always forget, which is Forbidden Machines. It's a time travel game done with cards. The art is beautiful, if sometimes not too functional. What I like about it is your actions are very, very simple to do, but your decisions are very, very difficult to figure out how you're going to get them to play out and the mode in which you're going to get them to spool out the way you want them to spool out. We'll go in and take a closer look at that in a little bit. Rule book, not very good. It looks pretty, but oh, it made it harder for me to figure out what I was supposed to do. So I had to do some drive runs and even go to the geek to answer questions. Again, everything looks pretty. The only other thing that's a little weird is, again, due to the kind of graphic design, to really making it functional for the players, you've got to all sit on the same side of the table. It even has a suggestion of that in the rulebook, and that's a little odd. So I've played a couple two-person games, and I don't know, I'm so used to that person being on the other side of the table. It almost feels as we're playing the game that we're just driving down the road. Hey, you know, we're sitting next to each other here, and you got to kind of watch your cards so that you're not exposing what's in your hand. So that's it, just kind of an odd thing. Just feels odd when you're playing two-player and you're sitting next to each other and there's no one over there like where you guys are at. Just throwing it out there. Let's go in and I'll kind of show you the board and show you what I'm talking about with the cards. Basic walk through the board. The cards that you're going to be able to draw into your hand, the discard. This is going to be the round tracker. There's going to be 4 rounds, and this is going to be your turn tracker. There'll be 4 turns that'll equal a round. You've got your turn order, which gets kind of weighted or adjusted as you play the game. Then you've got your victory point tracker. Should have had numbers in here, but hey, whatnot. Beautiful art. This is going to be considered current time as you play the game, because this is the time stream as you go back. As the rounds progress, the time meter goes, and it's going to extend out further here to like a 5th era. The other cool thing to note here is when you're just 1 era back, you can only have 1 card in this like space below it, whereas here you'll have 2 that could come down, 3 that can come down, 4 that can come down, and then 5 that can come down. So you're always going to have like your basic fundamentals like fire and basic tools. You're gonna want them over here, because like you would imagine, you can't have the internet start here and then basic tools come in over here. They've got to progress in what would be a logical thinking fashion. A little bit of the card art, which you're really never going to see because this is your like player board. This area here is like, they call it for advanced play. It's an extra little goal you can go through that'll net you some extra points. There's some flavor text story on here, but then these are the possible actions you can do on your turn. You can do 3 of them with a possible free action. I'll explain in a bit. Influence pool is simply these cubes. You're going to be putting them down on cards when you play a card down into the timeline, and throughout the game they'll be coming back to you into this pool, and you'll use these as one of your actions in here to influence different things that'll be in your timeline. The way to think of it is basically you have the influence over whatever, the steam engine, and as long as you have majority influence over it, you're going to score the points over here. So there's a little tug of war aspect. is a turn's real simple. You're going to take 3 actions. Your actions are as simple as you can move backwards in the timeline. So you don't want to move too far back because once you move backwards in time, you cannot move back forward in time until the end of that turn, at which point you're returned. So what it usually means is you may go back to here, and remember at this point, this like spot here can only hold 1 card. So it would have been an action to move to here, and then let's just say I am hopeful. I've got some cards here from a game I played. I am very hopeful that I'm going to get genetics, which is going to be worth a lot of points. It's going to cost me 3 of the cards in my hand. Use cards in your hand in order to pay and get cards down. And these little areas down here are going to be things that are going to be required for genetics to work. Now in a regular game, you probably wouldn't want genetics out this early because you're not going to be able to trigger its benefits. You may want to hold on to this card for a while because in order to score points for it, you have to have the prerequisites of a hospital. The sanitation has to be there for the hospital, microscope, and all these little subcategories. They're all required in order to even get to microscope. And then genetics takes microscope and hospital for you to get this. And by that meaning, these other cards have to already be down in the time stream. But just for action, boom, it's down. I would have to have a bunch of 3 cards in my hand. I would say, hey, I don't have to show them, but hey, I paid my 3 cards. Bam, they're on there. I bring in influence, comes out of an influence pool. It costs 3 cards. Bam, it gets 3 pieces of influence on it. What's cool is as you get your influence onto the card, there's a mechanism that's going to slowly return these to me as the game progresses, and then I can use them to influence other things or re-influence this. So it would have been 1 action to move to here, 1 action to put my card down and spend my cards and get my influence. And then let's say I move all the way down to this timeline. That would be very risky because I'm not going to be able to move back up this time stream until we finish the entire round. So I could find myself stuck way down here, but heck, maybe that's where I want to go. I can play 4 cards down here, and oftentimes you're going to want the basic fundamental cards down on this level. So sanitation, it's a fundamental. It's going to cost me 2 cards to get in. So again, I'm going to have to discard 2 of my cards in my hand, but it's not even going to get me any points. But I'm going to need it if I'm ultimately going to score this, or the microscope, or the hospital. So I've played it, it would go in, and that would be an action. Just going down the actions you can do. I've already showed traveling in the past where you're moving these guys back. Establishing a technology in your current time frame. It's what I'm doing here, it's what I did there. Influence the technology. In the very first turn, you don't have any of these fellows, but in future turns, you're going to be putting your cubes on maybe someone else's tech they put down, and you're going to try to gain the influence over it because that's how you're going to gain the points when you score it. Or you could always draw cards from the top of the deck, and this is kind of different too. When you draw cards, you're going to draw 2, you've got to pick 1 and discard the other. And it can mean that you get stuck with cards in your hand. So the only way to really get rid of cards in your hand, let's just say I kept this. This goes into my hand, is when I start building techs, is how you're going to dump the cards that you don't want. So, you know, hey, I build the radio. Let's say red builds the radio. They move down the tech stream. They build it in here. They pay their cards. They get their cubes. By paying their cards off is one way you can get rid of cards in your hand that you don't want. All right, I've turned the lights down so I can show you how this is going to work for scoring. It wouldn't be nearly this clean in a game, but I've actually pulled this exact thing off in game. It just doesn't look as pretty because you've got a lot of other cards that are going to be in. When you go to do your scoring, you're kind of going to look here, genetics. First thing you want to do is see it's worth 13. Yellow or green or whatever you want to call this has influence over this. So first you want to see were they able to pull off genetics. Do they have a hospital with sanitation? Yes, yes. They've all prerequisite and got each other. What about the microscope? We have the microscope. It requires certain fundamental things. It's going to require basic sciences. It's going to require basic tools and sanitation. Yes, all of that is done. This would score. So you can see yellow would just be running here. Not to mention when you score the big item here. Any of these ones you see that, I know I'm not zoomed in enough, but they've got that little kind of a black symbol that matches the crown. They're the little things that are required are going to score again. So then you go to microscope, and now you see it's going to score 6, but heck, whoever's got these are going to score bonuses, which is going to be advanced sciences. So you've seen red has been scoring for advanced sciences here, and they're going to score for their hospital here over on genetics. So there's multiple scoring opportunities, not only the one for the card, but these little zones here. And you can see the prerequisites come all the way down. Hospital requires sanitation up here. Advanced sciences requires basic sciences. So the way they tie in together is really simple, but it is hard to get it to pull off. And you can't have like advanced sciences in the same time stream or timeline as basic sciences. So they've got to progress, which is somewhat difficult to pull off with your actions on your turn. It's beautiful. It's simple. Little hard to explain, but once you start playing or show them kind of just the simple thing here, and hey, that makes sense. You know, you're not going to have a hospital before you even have sanitation. Okay, well, maybe some of that happened in real life, but it's very easy to explain in game. Very nice system. So now you've got an idea for scoring, how the cards lay in, how the time streams, and how your actions work. And there's simply 4 turns in a round, and there's 4 rounds. If you haven't given Legacy years of time of play, you need to go out and play it. It's a thinky game, but it has the beautiful, gritty, thinky part of just what do I do to maximize my turn. I'm telling you guys, give this game a shot. It's a fun, fun game.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.